finally working over there on the other laptop, so we can get ourselves started. Welcome to our November community engagement meeting. We'll officially call ourselves to order. And I will start by asking for a motion to approve the October 8th meeting minutes.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please note by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. The motion carries. Thank you so much. And I will turn it over to Dr. Robinson and I guess Dr. Sturtevant, is that right?
Absolutely. And good morning, and wait, good afternoon.
You're like, what time is
It's
it?
been a long day. I was up all night watching the great results, so congratulations to you all.
Thank you.
Target's desired outcomes today is really to share an update of the Community Partnership Mapping Initiative. And after we do so, we want to be able to share information around the district family engagement initiatives, which I think is going to be very interesting as we enlighten the board on some of the things that we're doing that you may not be aware of. And then we want to engage in dialogue, reflecting on recent learning and future planning of where we're going with the Community Engagement Committee. So at this time, I will turn it over to Dr. Sturtevant, and she's going to provide you the community mapping update.
Thank you. So the Community Mapping Initiative is definitely making progress, so I wanted to provide an update on some of that progress today. As you know, we are asking community organizations, nonprofits, pretty much anyone offering free goods and services to put themselves on the map. So they do have an opportunity to submit their organization's profile using the QR code, the bit.ly address featured here, or it can also be accessed from our website under the Community tab. The submission form is pretty straightforward, and once they submit their information, it will appear on a map for us to use internally for all of our staff to use. So I do want to give a moment to give you all an opportunity to take a look at what we see on our end during this time today. You can access the mapping tool from Wake Connect. You do have to be on our Wake County Public Schools server. Again, it is for internal staff use. So from Wake Connect, you go under Workspaces, access it through the Community Engagement tab there under Offices and Programs. Once you click there, you will see resources, and we're hoping to continue to add to the resources, but the Community Partnerships and Mapping Initiative link is there. This is basically how staff would be able to get in or are able to get in. The last time we met, I did share that we have terms of use. Since then, I have been able to share this with a number of school administrators, and they really gave a positive response. No edits or addendums. They definitely understood the terms of use and thought they were helpful. So those are featured there, and then you'll notice the blue box, if you continue to scroll down, is how you actually access the map. So I mentioned being able to share it with staff. That's pretty much the phase that we're in now. It's continuing to get those profile submissions and also sharing it internally so people can start to use it. So again, that's making a lot of progress. We did our first group during the Summer Leadership Conference. Since then, I was able to present at the first principals meeting and the subsequent assistant principals meeting. So again, it was well received. I would say at this point, we've shared with maybe 50 school administrators. So it's definitely gaining traction there. I'm also getting requests from specific departments. So I do want our staff to know that that's a possibility for me to come share it with our district level departments, specifically the ESL department. I'll be sharing with them coming up so that they'll know, wow, this tool is available. And I'm going to be sharing with the middle school counseling group. I'm already scheduled to share with them. So hopefully I'll be able to get more opportunities like that. We've also been considering different ideas to get it to our staff by other means. So I'm considering building Canvas modules so they can do it asynchronously, independently on their own to learn more about how to use the tool, make sure they understand the terms of use and begin to use it. And even some live webinars where I'm actually there so they can do like Q&A. So those are coming soon. So just so you can kind of know what the tool actually has to offer, I'll do this quick overview and then you can take a little bit of time to take a look if you'd like. But we do have like a mapping legend or key that is outlined on the left-hand side of this particular slide. If you'll notice the circles that indicate an actual organization submission, they're featured as green or like a burgundy reddish color. We wanted to feature all organizations, even if they're not currently accepting new partnerships. So that's the delineation there. The green ones are saying, yes, we're open to new partnerships. Those that are red are saying, no, not at this time. But again, we still wanted their information and wanted to know that they're out there because things change, and this still gives us a way to communicate with those organizations. We also have all of the public libraries featured so that schools and even staff can know where the libraries are in proximity to their schools. And then obviously the schools are located. So you can see all of those particular icons on the left-hand side. And this just gives you a glimpse at what the dashboard looks like. So on that right-hand side of the dashboard is where the partnership list is featured. So this basically shows you every name of the organizations that are on the map at this time. You can simply scroll and see the long list. They are in alphabetical order, and the name of the organization is actually a link to the organization's website. So although the map does not tell them everything they need to know about the organization, it definitely gives them enough insight to say, oh, I want to look at this organization a little bit more closely, so then they can easily go to the organization's website straight from the name link. It also gives the primary contact, the phone, email, and their preferred method of contact. We even got feedback about MOUs, so it even lets the viewer know if this organization requires one or has a current MOU in place. So the principals thought that would be helpful, a helpful addition, so that was a update that we made. The dashboard also features filtering options. So if the viewer says, oh, I'm really looking for organizations that offer clothing, they can filter for that option. You can also filter by the, so that would be the services filter, what services are offered. The audience, so we did ask the organizations, is what you're offering primarily for pre-K, middle school, whomever, and so they can filter by audience and by service area, which features the municipalities. And again, they can also search for MOU, like I just mentioned. The last thing I'll mention about the dashboard is the download option. I mentioned you have to be on the server to access it, but you could basically do your search while you're on the server and do the download feature, and then you'd have the information for the organizations you'd like to contact as a spreadsheet. So that also helps staff out to know, okay, I want to contact these 3. I don't necessarily have time at this moment, and I'll be able to download or print that way. So you do have that download and print option as well. Just to give a little update about some of the increases that we're seeing. The last time I shared with you all, we had 34 submissions. Since then, that was in September. Now we're here at the start of November. We're at 73. So we have doubled those submissions. We'll continue to work at it, but I did want to highlight those increases. And this particular slide kind of shows the changes from September to November based on the municipality or the area. Take you a moment to look at that one. And then this one basically just highlights the types of submissions that we're getting. And as you can see with nonprofits, we've pretty much doubled those submissions. So a lot of nonprofit organizations are hearing about the opportunity and they are submitting their profiles. And again, we'll just continue to spread the word. We were at 24 nonprofits last time, now we're at 48. And then this particular slide just shows the types of services that are featured. And as you can see, the blue shows how many for those particular services were featured in September, and the green shows how many we now have here in November. So definitely a lot of mentoring opportunities. Health and wellness is definitely a lot of representation there, and then even training and professional development opportunities. So lots of opportunities to partner, and in the sessions, those are just some things that we are discussing when I'm engaging principals and anyone who's attended the sessions. Like, we're talking about creative ways to continue and increase the partnerships and maximize on these offerings. So if we can continue to spread the word, encouraging the organization to submit their profiles. Again, they don't necessarily have to have the flyer. They don't have to have the QR code in the Bitly. They can access the submission form straight from our website under the Communities tab. So this slide just kind of shows how you can access that. It's listed on our website. So if you want to take a moment to take a look, my thought was you could see who's already featured, and then from there, you could definitely take a look at who's featured in what areas and think about organizations that are not showing up and just continue to help us spread the word.
And while people look, I certainly will say I have now seen Dr. Sturva in the community multiple times recently.
Yes.
So I think it's also important to note that you aren't just waiting for organizations to find you. I saw you on a Saturday morning in the middle of a field with lots of organizations, and of course, I'm sure, Ms. Rice, you also probably saw her on Friday. So I also recognize that that's outside of work hours, and I think it's important for the board to hear the work that you were in time that you're, and I also said to her, I was like, are you an extrovert? Because this is a lot of work to be in community, trying to help people actively engage with us. And so, again, thank you, and I want to acknowledge, I know that that may not necessarily be how you thought you'd be spending your time, but the fruits of your labor has paid off by seeing double the submissions. And again, when we started this, largely for me, the people that we brought to the table to share the work that they're doing in our schools, for me, what the biggest piece is the eye-opening experience for board members and the things that were already happening in our schools and in community that the board were not aware of in a holistic way. And so hopefully I see people looking, so hopefully this will help us see kind of what's out there, but more importantly, also for our principals. There are lots of opportunities for our students and their families that we aren't offering the resources because we didn't have a collective way to know that they existed. And so we know when people get overwhelmed, we get paralysis versus having someone else figure out how to do it for us. And so hopefully this will be an easy way, especially if you're going to create some modules or live webinars for people to engage with you. I certainly appreciate you going to affinity groups like middle school counselors, because hopefully they'll also use it. This is a way to say, if we see something with a student, we can intervene early, because a lot of these are options for interventions.
Thank you.
All right, so I see people looking, so now I'll start taking questions. I know, Ms. Evans, you ready?
Sure,
And I'll go
yeah.
around the table.
So I'm not sure I'm clicking on the right thing, but when I'm here, I'm just seeing the form. Did you mean for us to be able to see the list? Am I in the wrong place?
Yes, you'll have to go through Wake Connect.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
So it's on this.
Versus the
The
website.
intranet.
Okay.
Right here in your.
Yeah, okay. All right.
Chair Harris.
I just wanted to say I had an opportunity to go into the system, use the portal, and try to work with an organization putting information in, and it's very intuitive, it's very simple, and sometimes you ask people to fill out something and it's more work that it can put people off. This was very easy to use, and so I just want to commend you on that. And then just if anyone is listening who hasn't gone to it yet, I really encourage them to, because it doesn't take any time at all, and it's just an easy way to get in that system.
Ms. Rice?
I just want to say, I love community engagement. That's my jam. But you all have done a magnificent job again. Not only, I just want to highlight Dr. Sturtevant, right? Okay, I thought I said it wrong. About being in community. She wasn't just there in community. She engaged with the students that were there in community, communicated with them, pulled things out of them, get them to participate even after being in spaces within the community. So it's really, really great to be able to stand up proudly and say that Wake County Public Schools is committed and is serious about engaging community and making sure that they feel heard and seen. And so I was just really proud just to be able to be a part, to see our district doing that, and it didn't have anything to do with us being there, that it was just authentic, and I loved it.
So before we go to the next one, again, and when Dr. Robinson and I were talking about this section, for me, it feels like we know so much about family engagement because in my tenure, I've had a lot of engagement with Dr. Ringel and the work that she was doing with family academies, most new recent Saturday Academy for Latinos. Those things seem to be ever present. But every once in a while, as a board member, we'll get a whiff of something and we're like, wait, is that something we're doing? I've never heard of that. I felt much better because apparently I was not the only person who was not aware of how much work that was already happening. So again, I would say this first half of the year really is about level setting for board members. What exists in community, what exists in the district, so that in the new year, the chair of this committee can actually move to action step planning of where the board would like to be, how the board wants to utilize the tools that exist for us to actively engage in community. I'm certainly going to keep reminding my board members that the goal is to physically put this committee in community so that board members are also engaging. But hopefully, even for our board members who aren't at this table, like me, I'm sure they go back and look at the videos, that this is the level set, so that hopefully you won't in January have people saying, now who do we work with and how would I know? So hopefully these are tools for the board to be able to know that we all have access to this information so that we make the right decisions moving forward next year on how we actually move forward as a board and community. So I will turn it over to you to hear more about all the things I'm sure we don't know.
Absolutely. So when we think about district and family community engagement initiatives, we know that it directly impacts one of the pillars of our strategic plan, specifically AIM 6, AIM 7, AIM 12, where it really talks about community engagement and practice. When I was challenged by the committee chair to really bring something to the board that talks about the family and community engagement efforts that are going on in the district, I was intrigued by the number of responses that I received back from my colleagues with regards to the work that they're doing. Student Assignments does work with family and community engagement, Office of Professional Learning, Early Learning, that's with Dawn Dawson, Magnet Programs. We know about family and community engagement that comes out of the Office of Equity Affairs. And we also have Family and Community Connections and Related Services that comes out of the Special Education Services Department as well. But today you're going to hear from Title I. And so let me just do a brief introduction, even though we know Dr. Kim Burton. I wrote something and I want to read it just for exactness because I think she deserves the accolades of some of the work that she's doing. Dr. Kimberly Burton is our Title I Director and Chair of our WCPSS Family and Community Engagement FACE Committee and is leading impactful work in family and community engagement across our district. Here's a look at the key initiatives under her leadership. Under Title I Director responsibilities, she drives engagement that enhance family involvement and improve academic outcomes for students in Title I schools. She develops and evaluates the Parent Family Engagement PFE policy to ensure effectiveness and inclusivity. She coordinates engagement strategies with federal and state programs to align efforts and maximize impact. She supports schools in implementing successful family engagement practices to strengthen connections between home and school. As the Family and Community Engagement Committee leadership perspective, she chairs the district-wide Family and Community Engagement Committee, creating a cohesive vision for engagement. She also leads the development of a unified and inclusive definition of family engagement, emphasizing collaboration. I feel like I'm giving you an award or something.
It does sound like an award,
Yes.
but I don't know where it is if it is true, Dr. Burton.
Emphasizing collaboration among families, schools, and the community, and she focuses on building partnerships that promote academic and socio-emotional success for every student. Dr. Burton is going to share additional information at this time and really dive into those key activities and initiatives just to make sure that the board is informed of all that is taking place within our district under those two rounds of work. So, ma'am, I turn it over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Robinson, for such a nice introduction, and so thank you, Board and Superintendent Taylor, for this opportunity to share. So just some program highlights. I'll start with my role as the Title I Director. So the law requires in Title I funded schools for Title I programs in districts receiving over a certain threshold of funding for the district to allocate funds to schools for this purpose, for family and community engagement. So I want you to know that independent of school allocations to focus on student achievement efforts, our schools also have allocations to focus on family and community engagement exclusively. And so it is my responsibility to make sure that not only I am allocating a portion of our total Title I budget to schools, but out of that total budget, 90% of that budget goes directly to schools for this purpose. So that's a good amount of funding that's dedicated to our most vulnerable schools and communities to do this very important work. So I have the pleasure of being able to work with 65 of our schools to lead this effort. Part of this effort does involve the inclusion of working with our families to develop what we call family engagement policies at our schools. And so our schools work at the beginning of the year to make sure that they are inviting families to participate in the creation of a family engagement policy. Per law, these policies should be posted on schools' websites. So that they are available for the public to see. In addition to a policy, our schools also are creating family engagement homeschool compacts. And the difference between the compact and the policy is that the compact is something that is more of an agreement between the home and the school. So some schools, mostly our elementary schools, choose to do that even on a grade level perspective. They may have a pre-K compact, a kindergarten compact, and so on, because that's an agreement with the family and the school of how they will partner together to do the very work that's necessary to ensure that the learners are successful. Some of our secondary schools choose to do a more broader compact, and they may choose to do a whole school compact. But the point being is that the school is working hard to include families in what that looks like. So they're having conversations with families around what does success look like for your learner and how may we support that and what do we want to do in having a collective conversation around what that looks like. So that's part of the important work that we do. The other thing that our Title I funded schools are working very diligently around this effort is also to ensure that in Title I funded schools, we're working to ensure that our family engagement does work to improve student outcomes. So when our schools are using the funding that is available to them, we work to ensure that at every opportunity when they have the school events, those school events are somehow linking back to learning. And I have something that I'll leave with you that is from our national expert that Wake has long adopted this body of research from Dr. Karen Mapp, and it's called the Dual Capacity Framework. And you'll hear me reference this in this work with Title I, but we're also working hard on the district level in my other role and capacity as the chair of the district's committee, ensuring that the professional learning that we're providing also helps our school leaders to understand this impact. It's critical. There are events, school events, where families are present, and then there are school events that should foster linking to learning. If we have families in our buildings and we are not talking about learning that is happening at school, if we're not talking about the standards and what is happening in curriculum and school resources, and further, if we are not training our families on how to help with that at home, then those are missed opportunities. And so we want to build the capacity in our school staff to ensure that every time families are in our building for events, we want to link to learning. And so that's a huge part of what we do programmatically with our Title I funded schools. We also it's my responsibility to annually make sure that I'm providing the resources to our 65 schools to hold what is called an annual parent meeting. The law requires that in all of our schools that they convene a meeting at the beginning of the year, helping our families to understand what is the Title I program, why are we here, what resources do you provide to make sure that my child is successful. At that parent meeting, our office makes sure that our schools have the slide deck that includes the legislation, that includes the information on how families may be involved. Those things include, you may or may not be aware, in Title I funded schools, our parents have the right to request teacher qualifications. Our parents have the right to be notified when students may be in positions where if staffing becomes an issue, students may not have had a certified teacher for 4 or more consecutive weeks. Parents have the right to those notifications. And so we have a responsibility to make sure that they are notified as such. And so our office provides that information to our school leaders and makes sure that they have the accurate information to share that with our families in a timely manner at the beginning of the school year. We also have a responsibility in the Office of Title I to ensure that there is an annual evaluation of our work. We do that in a couple of ways. One, through our internal monitoring system where we are uploading all of the documents and resources, and that's a compliance piece for us. I would like to say that compliance breeds commitment, right? And I do believe that you need both of those for effective programming. We need folks to understand that these are entitlements for our families, for our parents and our students, but in ensuring that these entitlements are in place, it does breed commitment, a level of commitment in understanding the rights of our families and our students. And so that's critical work and important. The other thing that is required of me in my role as a director of Title I programming is to ensure that annually we're surveying our families. The last time I was with you, I believe, I shared the Panorama survey results and shared with you the favorable responses from our Title I schools. But I also shared how Title I was able to do that, to get those favorable responses, with making sure that we were communicating through paper survey responses, and how we were supporting with a supplemental budget to be sure that we were able to offer that to our families so those voices could be heard. So all of that is largely the responsibilities that come out of my office to ensure that we are providing equitable opportunities for family voice in our schools. We are building the capacity in our school leaders and our staff to understand the different needs of our families. We are making sure that our families understand that when they are in our buildings, that their voices matter, that they understand what the curriculum is, that they understand what is being taught, and further how they can help at home. The beauty around using the family engagement resources that schools are provided and the fiscal resources is that even at most of these events, when families are there, they get to walk away with the tools, physical tools that they can take home. In many of our schools, that can be something as simple as these expensive calculators that cost $100 that many families can't afford. And it's as simple as school families coming into the schools, learning how to operate those calculators and manipulating the curriculum and understanding how that comes into play at school. And for them to hear, they don't have to bring those back to school. They can stay at home to help students do their homework, is a game changer for families. And so we're pleased to be able to offer that type of support to our families. And so that's the work that we do around our Title I funded schools as it relates to families and communities. And I could probably tell you any other zillion things, but I'll shift a little bit now to my role as the district chair of our Family and Community Engagement Committee. The district's Family and Community Engagement Committee really was birthed out of the return to school out of COVID-19. It was at that time called the Tiered Instruction Family Engagement Committee, and some of you may remember that terminology from that time. There were several committees at that time with the return to school effort. And at some point, it was recognized we just have about every kind of committee, but we don't have a family engagement committee. And so Assistant Superintendent Drew Cook at that time approached me about leading that work. And so because it is a passion of mine, I said, sure, I'll help lead that effort. And so that's how I became involved with this work at the district level. Since that time, I had the opportunity to even be involved with the revision of the strategic plan and the role that family and community engagement has in that regard. As a result of that work, it was a little eye-opening to hear some of the feedback from stakeholders around some of the disparity that existed in terms of professional learning between Title I funded school leaders and non-Title I school leaders, because you just heard me speak to Title I schools having funding to support that effort. And so it made me kind of think about what were the possibilities, what could we do as a district to provide greater resources across the entire district to kind of level that playing field. So at the time, I decided to write a proposal for funding for the Family and Community Engagement Committee, won that proposal, and because of that funding, we were able to last year do the first Family and Community Engagement series, professional learning series and summit. During that first series, we provided monthly professional learning from November through February of last year, and I think I had the opportunity to brief the board on that work, and all of that led up to the summit on April 27th. The purpose of the professional learning series and the summit was really to build that capacity in our staff, right? In our school leaders, in our teachers, in our cafe workers, bus drivers, anyone, in our district staff, in our district departments, because we believed heavily that in order for us to work best with our families, we needed to know what to do. We needed to know what those research and evidence-based practices were. So we needed to develop that understanding in ourselves. So that was kind of how that idea came about. And it also was the initiative to make sure that we were leveling that playing field, that here was professional learning that would be available to all, not something exclusive to Title I funded schools because there was funding there. So for the first time, we were able to really do something that massive at the district level. At the same time, the professional learning series was at play. We also, for the first time, built a course that was called the Foundations of Family and Community Engagement, which was an asynchronous course that any staff could sign up for and take at their leisure. And so again, for the first time, there's professional learning opportunities out there to build capacity. So we were very pleased as a committee that we were able to really put these things out there. And the committee set a goal last year for professional learning to really be top of mind is what we wanted to accomplish. So we were really pleased that we were able to do that. So moving into this school year, 24-25, once again, the committee believed that professional learning still needed to be top of mind because one and done was not enough, and we still needed to continue these efforts. And so we began this work for this school year in October. And we are offering the professional learning series again this year, running through monthly from October to March this year, with a speaker each month. We had in October Mr. Robert Jackson, who came to us on October 21st. There were 75 attendees in that session. So for a Monday afternoon at 4:30 with lots going on at schools, we were super pleased about that. I will tell you that Mr. Jackson's message to all on that virtual call that afternoon was really for us to all take a look at ourselves and to realize that perfection does not exist. that as we work with families, we also must consider and realize that we are not perfect families either. We are not perfect parents either. And so a level of an understanding of empathy as we work with our families can go a long way. And I have to tell you the number of emails that I received immediately after that session from staff was a little overwhelming. I was just so pleased that people had those takeaways and saw that work as something that was useful and relevant to them. And so folks are excited about the November 18th session that is coming up. And we will have Dr. Manny Scott, who is coming to bring the message of never giving up. Dr. Scott sees himself and is noted as one of the original freedom writers. And so he is bringing that message to us. And then in January, we have Ms. Charlita Hatch. I had the opportunity to hear Ms. Hatch at a conference in October around family engagement. She will bring a non-traditional educator parent perspective. She travels the country doing family engagement conferences, sharing the perspective as a parent who did not know a lot about education and going into schools, being able to talk to teachers, not knowing a lot about what to expect. And now she's a children's author talking about her experiences working with families. So her message to educators is about how to work with families, realizing everybody you talk to, every family you encounter is not like you. They don't know Education 101. And so might you have that in mind and keep that as an understanding as you work with families. So as you can see, the theme here is a very diverse representation and lineup of who we have planned. And in February, we're bringing Dr. Maria Cody, who is a researcher that works with NC State, and she works around multilingual learner families. And so she is obviously going to be talking about how to work with families whose native language is not English, and how we can be, one, more sensitive, but two, make sure that we're going the extra mile to make sure those families have what they need to ensure their learners' success. And then finally, in March, we have Dr. Joyce Epstein. And if you don't know that name, just let me share with you that it ranks up there with the Constantinos, who were with us last spring, and Dr. Mapp. Dr. Epstein was doing this work before Dr. Mapp and Dr. Steve and Peggy Constantino. So she is a big name, and I was so pleased to get the email that she could do this virtual summit. And we're actually hoping she would be able to join us in person at our summit that is currently planned for April. So stay tuned, more goodness to come. We are super excited. The committee is super excited, and I could not be more pleased to lead such important work.
So before you guys ask questions, I just wanted to add that I'm super pleased by the work that Dr. Bird and her team is doing. One of the changes we saw in the Title I program is that this did go from parent involvement to now being called family engagement. So the whole idea is about how we engage families, knowing and understanding we need to do things beyond a parent night where we give out the compact, give out student agendas, our handbooks, if you will, and a couple of donuts, and we go on about our business. We now recognize that this is the kind of work that we have to do if indeed we're going to engage these families and make a difference in terms of what education is like for those families. So just wanted to add that and say continued great work.
Thank you.
Questions?
No, he took everything.
No, I'm sorry.
I mean, that's why he leaves.
I do have one question, and I thank you for saying that, Dr. Taylor, because I couldn't agree more the difference it makes. Again, probably going to be sentimental for next month, but definitely when I came here in 2013, I reminded people that, you know, my mom's goal was for me to be where I am today. And she didn't really understand school because most people just did school because they were told to do school. They didn't understand the need for engagement. And, you know, I have mixed feelings, whether it's fortunate or unfortunate, that now children's success is dependent upon family engagement. And that's just where we are. And as much as schools go above and beyond, we can still look at the data and almost say these kids have active parents based on their academic outcomes, and that's our reality. And while we don't say it that explicit to parents, we certainly are sending the message. So I'm glad that we're not just saying, here's the agenda for the month, good luck, and see you for math night, and we're not going to explain math, we're just going to call it math night, because that's really how we were doing parent engagement as well. They were doing something, we weren't actually engaging them. So I'm certainly glad that you're doing the professional development, because that's the only way we're going to see the real change in the buildings, is if our educators really truly hear examples, reasons, and not that they need the reasons, but there's a lot on the plate, and to know that the outcomes of students depends on them understanding ways to educate and engage families is important. So thank you for doing the professional development, because I have to say I didn't really think about that importance until I then had a school-age child and realized, oh, everybody actually doesn't know how to engage parents. And so thank you for doing that professional development. My question, with all my gratitude for the great work that you're doing, my question is how many, or not, I don't need a number, but just your thoughts on what we really see happening is, one, our schools, especially our Title I schools, who have a whole host of challenges we kind of talked about, what most of us are aware of, how are those schools that are choosing to do some of their family engagement in community making that decision? Like, do you have a process in which you're helping them to make that determination, or is it led by the school administrators? I can tell you I certainly have gotten a lot of great feedback from those communities, because our student assignment still has students not in schools, not in their community. And so I've definitely gotten some good feedback from those families where the schools are choosing to take family engagement into community. So how do they make that decision, and is there supports that you have in place, want to put in place to support that?
Yes, thank you for that question. There is definitely guidance and support coming from my office. Part of that is professional learning, and there are programmatic types. When the funds are allotted to schools, as you might imagine, there's a process by which schools request to use those funds. No purchases can be made to support these events without a prior approval for purchases from my office, and that directly comes to me so that I may assess what the expenditure is, and that expenditure must be tied to a school improvement indicator. The NC STAR platform has a particular school improvement. There are several, but there's one in particular that our schools first should be utilizing, linked directly to school improvement, family and community engagement. So I'm first looking for that, right? To see, A, are you linking this to school improvement and a school improvement, family and community engagement indicator? And then I'm asking schools to share with me an agenda. What type of event are you planning? Because I'm looking for how you plan to engage your families in a workshop type of setting. What are you going to teach your families during this time? How are you going to help families understand curriculum, how they can help students be better learners at school? So when I ask those questions, it almost, for lack of a better way to explain it, forces a school leader to answer those questions and to think through what that event looks like. When I get a request that says, and I do sometimes, in full transparency, that may ask about a bouncy house. That's going to go back. Those things are important. That might be a PTA event. That does not satisfy the requirement for what I believe the Title I funding should be used for when we're talking about linking to learning. I'm looking for workshop events where we're ordering materials and supplies that are going to help families understand how to change the educational trajectory. So when schools have to send me an agenda and show me how they're going to do that, and that requires my approval before they may spend those dollars, it changes things a little bit. So those things are at play before our schools can even spend the dollars. So I think that is one of the things that helps. And then I'm fortunate, very fortunate, that as part of the Title I programming, I've used my resources to create a position that we have a person on my staff who is available to be a thought partner with schools to sit down, and if schools are struggling with what that looks like and how to plan those events, we have someone who can sit down and help them do that. We are also in the process right now, and I was talking to Dr. Sturdivant and thanking her for the community mapping effort. We have already taken the community map and we've taken the regional approach, looking regionally. Where are the partners regionally? And where are the libraries in respect to those partners? And I've asked this person on my team to give me 5 partners, just 5 partners, and a library in relationship to those 5 partners, because what is coming is a partnership with those partners and the local library. And then we're going to be pushing that out to schools, saying to schools, now we've helped you, we've done some legwork for you.
Oh, that's really good.
Now, because what I think is schools sometimes need to see that we're the models. And if that's what it takes for us to show that this community homeschool community partnership is real and effective, then we're going to do that. And so we're super excited and have already been contacted by a partner that I never knew existed, and we've had conversation, and they're doing some work with NC State, and we've already thought about the facility that's near the library. Like, we're super excited about it. So that's part of how that work unfolds with the events, is that I offer a lot of guidance, a lot of structures, a lot of supports, and part of that, again, goes back to the compliance breeds commitment. There are just some things that are expected per compliance, but they breed commitment. I hope that answered. That was a lengthy answer to your question, but I hope that helps.
Well, it does tell me you're putting some tights in place so that some of our leaders will be more thoughtful about engaging. Again, I'm going to ride it till I'm not here anymore that we have students not in community that go to schools, and that means parents aren't able to be as engaged, nor their community. I don't even just mean parents, right? I mean the community that supports students don't have access to some of our schools because of our assignment, and that will be a great concern to me of how. So I feel like you're putting some tights in place that could cause those leaders to be introspective on, wait, what could I be doing differently to engage those families? So,
And tights with supports, right? I'm supporting the tights.
And that's the thing I want to go back and add, and I'm glad that Kim shared this about things that she may push back, like the bouncy house. And so that's good information for the board to know, so that if principals were to reach out and say, they're not letting me do so-and-so, then that helps you to understand that it's not just saying no, but there is a compliance, hopefully resulting in commitment and greater engagement. But then that example of what they're also doing to provide examples at the
I love the example too. Yeah. Mr. Hershey?
How are we measuring the success of these engagements?
After, in a couple of ways. So immediately, school-wide events, schools are pushing out mini surveys to families, not lengthy, but just asking families, did this event meet your needs? And because these events are linked to learning, right, translating into real student achievement data, right? We also send the message that not every event has to be school-wide. There tends to be a lot of math night, science night. We're working really hard, particularly now when if we're looking at the data, and the data is really driving what we're doing with engagement. We're really having a lot of conversations with schools around your subgroup data. Who are the families we might need to invite in and have conversations to spend a little more in-depth time with? And so in doing some of that, I think we'll get to some more metrics that might be showing a little more favorability around the good that they're doing, right, with some of that. I think it's harder to measure when you're doing whole school math night and trying to see if that is really making the difference that schools want them to make. So we're having conversations about more intimate structures and settings, Are we bringing our multilingual learning with families in, having a conversation around them around the table? Are we bringing our SPED families in, having conversations? And schools can do that, but I think schools need to be reminded of permission to do that. And sometimes I think it's the global, they think they have to do whole school events all the time. And those are important, but they may also do, in addition to that, some other things that are going to get them to some of those measures.
I like the idea of not doing the whole school event because I don't know how engaged is it just families that you want to be engaged at these events? Are you worried about children engagement at these events? Because when we go to whole school events, it is kids going to immediately getting together and doing their thing, which is fine to some degree, but also probably loses the intent. So is the expectation that, hey, the kids can go do their thing and therefore it's just get that family engagement piece, or?
For us in Title I funded schools, it can look like both and. It depends on largely how the planners are planning it. So as a former principal in 2 Title I funded schools here in the district, I can tell you what I did. Our families came and our families learned together with staff and students showcasing their learning. So my students help parents to learn what they were learning. So the students weren't sent off somewhere to do their own thing. They were learning, the families were learning with their students because the students were the teachers in most cases.
Okay.
In some cases, some schools do choose for the families to be there learning with the teachers and the students are someplace doing something else. But at some point, they do come back together at some point to share their learning. And that can be okay as long as you're ensuring that the experience that you intend for your families, which the event is for, to train your families, as long as you can ensure that that experience is what you intend. We also have the pleasure through Title I, and the law does provide this opportunity, is for schools to be able to provide child care options. So when you as a parent come and you have a 4-year-old who's going to be probably pretty busy while you're trying to learn something about your 6-year-old and your 9-year-old, then there are provisions for child care for children so that that parent can really focus and engage. And so most often it is instructional assistants at the school who are able to be paid for additional time that they're able to do that work. And so those little kiddos are in a space, watching a movie, having a snack, doing what little people do. So their parents have that time to engage, and not only time to engage, but to give that time and attention to their school-age children, to spend that time with them that they may not otherwise be able to.
Well, I would love to see you come back to us at some point with some examples or experiences or feedback on the whole school versus the smaller, because I think we always tend to go to the whole school ones, and it can feel like chaos, and everyone's parking or getting there, and a lot of people. And we talk about, smaller settings can be more impactful potentially. And so I don't know what the rest of the table thinks, but I think that would be a worthwhile.
Awesome. I'd love to be able to do that.
And I don't know if you say this school does this and then this school does the non, or you just do it at one school, but I'll leave that to you. But I think that'd be fascinating to kind of develop as a strategy.
Here. Ms. Rush, you had your hand?
Yes, I just had one question, and I'm over here excited about everything that I'm hearing as a person that has followed Title I and being engagement in community for years. I just have one question around what are the benefits you're seeing with informing parents about subs longer than 2 weeks?
I think, and I'm going to give you I'm going to put on my former school administrator hat, because that is the experience that I have, because I've had that experience. So as a former school administrator, I've had the challenge to where it is December and for whatever reason, third grade teacher resigns. At that point in the year, most often, it is very hard to fill a position, and you may find yourself with that long-term sub that you have hoped you'd replace with a certified teacher, but you're at week 4, and Title I schools of law says at week 4, it's time to now notify families. I think families want to know that children are receiving the best education possible, and I believe all families want to know that, independent of where they go to school and what the zip code is. Title I schools are no different. So when students have been in a classroom where things have not been as stable, it's been a little more challenging because you may have had a long-term sub, and maybe the long-term sub has been stable, meaning you may have been in a situation where you've been there for 4 weeks, but perhaps you've had a sub 1 week, a different sub the next week. Things could have been a lot more unstable. So the benefit of us sending that letter, and there is a letter that the law provides that each school administrator does tweak to be able to provide a little more information for families. I always took that opportunity to tell my parents what I did do, because it's one thing to say what would appear to be negative, right? Haven't had a certified teacher for 4 weeks. But it gives the school an opportunity to share the positive. But let me tell you what we did do. So, during this time, the instructional coach at Burton Elementary has been teaching the ELA curriculum to the students. So they have had instruction in English language arts from a certified teacher. Not the teacher of record, but yet a certified teacher. A positive thing that you get the opportunity to put a spin on, something that could be perceived as negative. The instructional facilitator at Burton Elementary has been providing the math instruction to the 3rd grade students. While we know this is not optimal, we are working hard to interview, screen resumes, and ensure that at our earliest convenience, we are able to provide some stability for the students in this class. We will inform you as soon as possible. Please let us know if you have any questions or concerns. The benefit or the feedback that I received from families, thank you, Mrs. Burton, for this information. I also heard comments from families like, thank you for sharing this. Now I know how to work with the school around reporting periods. Because this could happen around a reporting periods, and you could have families ask the question, well, how are you assigning grades when there was no teacher of record? So how are you getting grades? So when you say what you are doing and there's an understanding or a feeling of calm, that there has been quality instruction, there are less concerns from families when the report card goes home that somebody had some idea of assessments that needed to occur, so when the reporting goes home, there was not a mismatch between not having a certified teacher for 4 weeks and the grade that the child received. So the benefit, I believe, is giving the school an opportunity to tell their story before something can be seen that was unforeseen and something that the school could not help or keep from happening have a negative impact on the school, the child, the class, or the family.
Very good.
We should get templates from Burton Elementary.
You're going over here thinking there's that
I think we need
other
some-
committee.
yes.
She just answered, which was why I asked the question.
I do share those in my experiences
It's very well
with the
written for
principals I
Burton
work with now, because they do ask, well, what have you said to families? Because I share the blanket template, and I always tell your story. Get out ahead of
That's
it
good.
and tell your story, because you're doing something to mitigate this. Just tell them what that is.
Would you agree with administrators being able to do that? It also causes the administrator to have a level of a timeline that they do have to follow up and monitor, progress monitor what they actually are doing?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I again, I think I hit 30 years in this wonderful world of education as of August 1. And aside from 4 years as an assistant principal, I have worked in Title I schools and done something in Title I in every year except for 4 years as an assistant principal. And I think for me, the compliance part of it is huge, but as a leader, it does help you to foster skills that are such a part of your daily work, because when you know that at a 4-week period, you're going to have to communicate something, you're going to have to send this letter, you're going to be responsible for this communication, it does drive that timeline. Even from the standpoint of making sure that you are combing through resumes and you're doing your best to try to go ahead and secure a teacher, because you can get busy and the busyness can get in the way. And then you realize, oh my gosh, I really haven't interviewed one person. So I do think some of the compliance pieces help to kind of push and help school leaders kind of navigate through what needs to happen. And again, going back to compliance breeding the commitment.
One last follow-up is just, is this revolving? The 4-week period, is that revolving?
So if after the 4 weeks you send the letter, if
Right.
it's 4 more weeks?
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
They
I
would
just want
have to.
clarity. I want to
yes.
make sure, okay.
Thank you.
That's it, I'm done, I'm sorry.
No, good question. Any other questions? Again, thank you very much. Hopefully this isn't just helpful to us, but again, like I said, for anybody who goes back and watch this, of all the work that we've done. And I'd be remiss if I didn't say this is also beneficial for our non-Title I schools.
The whole point of the question, right? Absolutely. Very
Thank
good.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Passion, commitment,
Yes.
dedication.
Perfect.
Definitely. And I also have to give Dr. Burton a special thanks because she came on a short notice, because as you and I engaged in the conversation, I was like, listen, we got so many different departments doing so many great things, and you gave me the directive. We'll bring something that we typically don't get an opportunity to hear. So as we move forward, I think it'll be an opportunity for other departments to come and share the great things that they're doing as well when it comes to family and community efforts. So I thank you.
Thank you for being the pilot now that the bar is
Yes.
set.
Excellent.
Thank you for the
She set the
opportunity.
bar high.
So at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Leanne Offer-Keefe, who's going to take you through a protocol that really talks about where we're going from this point forward.
Yes, thank you so much, Dr. Robinson, and for the opportunity to join you all. This was designed with the idea in mind that you could reflect on the first semester, as Ms. Johnson-Hostler was saying, and then do some planning forward. And so as a quick reminder, because you all do so much work that sometimes I'm sure it's hard to think, oh, who all did we hear from and what all have we learned? So here is a quick recap and reflection on Community Engagement Committee meetings since March and the things that you have engaged in March. You heard an overview of the strategic plan pillar, talked about the Community Engagement Task Force, presentations to municipalities, and about a collaborative effort that had started in Knightdale. In May, you heard about the District 4 work that Ms. Rice is engaged in. Community mapping initiative was kicked off, as well as an update on the new volunteer processes and about the Family Engagement Summit. Then in August, you had presentations from the Divine Nine fraternities and sororities about the opportunities they offer our Wake County students. Then in September, you heard an update on the Community Mapping Initiative, as well as getting to dig into the Family School Relationship Survey data. And in October, you got to see some partner highlights from YMCA and the Boys and Girls Club, as well as from community partners who serve Latino or Latina students and families. And so with all those bullet points and highlights in mind, we are going to engage in a protocol called Rose, Bud, Thorn. And I'm going to ask that you do this in pairs, if you don't mind. And when you're doing this, or threes if you'd rather, threes are also fine, if that's better. When you do this, you are going to think of the rows
For my children.
as the excellent examples that you would like to highlight. I'll take it back to our timeline momentarily because that might be a better view for your brainstorming. But what are the excellent examples that you would really want to highlight? We want to hear more of these types of examples and presentations in the committee meeting in the future. And then, Bud, what is it that is really initially promising to you that you would charge us as a staff to see building upon and bringing to you more as well? And then Thorn. Thorn is something that is still sticking with you, that you would charge a staff to problem solve and to bring back with a problem solving lens. So we will flip back to the timeline as you think of the work, or not, because I'm in the wrong view. To the timeline as you think of the work in those three categories, and feel free to capture in bullets. What are your roses, your buds, and your thorns? And I have markers if you'd like to make it pretty. If you prefer a marker, there you go.
So I'm putting this here because I don't feel like,
All right.
I
Excellent
feel like you're
examples you would
still
like to
setting it up.
highlight.
I mean, I definitely like what's actually already happened. Even the fact that I didn't realize we had engaged friends in the way that we had here. Because the bigger the things it is. I didn't realize how leadership was doing so. I'm glad to know.
This, I don't care where it goes either in here or here, but I want
Oh, more, okay.
like around the budget.
Yeah.
City engagements on the rules.
Not, what would you say, not discussed or not advertised or not?
I think it could be like,
well
that's an
known.
excellent
Yeah.
example that we would like to highlight. It can kind of go in both.
Yeah.
So it's like, what
And
else comes
we need to do this,
So I thought,
you know, once or twice a year, every year. I'd like to see
what I
one.
like this,
well, I think the whole community mapping.
Oh, definitely,
initiative,
definitely.
I think we do some with PTAs, but like, PTAs, and it can just be all in the same, I don't really care, but, and for this one, is getting into, like getting us.
And then I was going to put it under Rose, but maybe it should be under Bud. But you know, the work we did to get the Divine Nine
Yep.
pulled together.
I definitely think that's about it.
I think, well,
I think the one Dr. Martin just talked about was about of how do we expand or share with the online schools.
Lessons learned or services provided. What are we sharing with them?
I think it's both. I think it's both. I think it's the structure that Title I schools are required to use that's beneficial to connect their family engagement to their SIP indicators.
They get
And then the rest is their need. And also
Sharing.
successes. I mean, talking about those two.
You want examples
How
or
about
something?
sharing successful
You're welcome.
practices?
Yes, there you go.
It can be a topic or an example.
Oh, okay. No,
Can be.
it's a lot of work.
And I also will say, think about your reflection first,
Okay. Related to engagement.
what you've done in the 6 months, but then you can also think about future planning. So,
You know that was going to be my follow-up. I was like,
Uh-huh. yes,
it's over December meeting, so if there's...
that's right. So reflection first, and maybe even when you transition, draw me a line to say, this is my reflection, or our reflection, and this is our future planning. Something that, I know you're all aware of roses, buds, or thorns, and other things related to family and community engagement that haven't been agenda topics. So you're welcome to brainstorm in both of those categories.
That just shows you how
Yes, it does. Trust me.
beat up I am.
Yes. Oh, that's-
All those issues.
Oh, God, you said that. I had blocked that out. I got so many
Right.
texts this morning, like, our whole job is going to be
I know,
different.
right?
Like, oh, my God.
I just found out the thing I told you about last night could just be outlawed, so, you know.
You know, actually, I thought about that this morning. But I was like, no, maybe I'm wrong.
I don't know, I had the same thought. Just right now. Right.
I guess a thorn for me, or maybe it's still just quickly, I don't know if it's a thorn. I still don't know what or how you can community support is. Like, I don't know how to. I don't know how to frame it either, but that's.
So, how to engage
I don't
students
remember about the Nightville Collaborative. I wonder if that's one of the.
attending schools outside of their
Yes,
community.
I'll give you a brief version. So Nightdale was one of the first towns that we presented to about their strategic plan.
Right.
And they shared, we have so many new principals, and so we don't exactly know who are our contacts or who are we inviting to a community event or those types of things. So Dr. Savage started an ongoing meeting with Nightdale town officials and the principals. I think they meet quarterly.
Okay.
So that as there are new principals coming in, they can meet and talk about opportunities for collaboration. So he was just sharing about getting that started.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Right over here. That sounds great.
Partners, talk about,
Yes, sir. Oh, yeah.
you want feedback, but sending out a web link email is not the way. Right.
That's actually a good point. How do we, what does participatory, I guess, evaluation look like, right? That's not just a survey. How do we hear from parents? Communities? Like, could they do a participatory evaluation at the end of things?
You said spread. What did you say about it? Okay.
A more participatory or inclusive process.
Yeah.
Okay. Fine.
I think we do what she says when we're like, that's something we want to see moving forward.
But I just killed it off in the election.
We do. So we did Garner recently. Holly Springs is the next one that we're working to get scheduled.
But we completed the exercise.
Then we still have to do
How do we get in the same room, like, the
Apex.
non-educator, right?
Is another one that we have to do.
One of the things I was reading.
And then, once we get to them all, we'll just start back again, actually. Because, you know, it's going to take us about 18 months to get to everybody. So at that point, it will be time to, like, start again.
We're always
And her signature's still
very
in
in our district.
Yeah.
We need to do a little bit more than start.
The old Joshua Rice in cursive is the signature. So I'm like,
Can we create a business card scanner of the
yeah, hers is the G, so it's like the big,
like the scan it? So it's something we
That on a cereal box.
pocket or in our outfit.
But, so yeah, so
Because we take care around people or paper. But if we can have just the QR code of the map or thing or something on it, and where we might can keep it when we're out, or in our
I mean,
phone,
may as well.
put it in our phone as a clip.
Oh, wait a minute, that's like-
And so that we can let people scan it right there when we need it. The teacher is gonna finish that line because, you know.
I don't know how, you know, like, was it right or way?
My brain is on overload.
I was like, because it was, my eyeball still had all the hair color, and they look at so pretty much, it wasn't what, you know, you were doing. Because she said, like,
I'm going to
but yeah.
Practice your mind reading.
I know, but it was so funny. She was like, "Kate," sorry to tell you that.
It didn't say representative.
No, it did not. But it was so funny
you know,
that she even noticed that. I was just
It was just my little tricky. So,
I would say, even with the thorn to me though, Tyler, is how do we leverage time with staff? It's a thorn to me, but yes, community engagement. Because the thing that gets me too, because I'm always thinking about wellness balance, how do we support or leverage
Well, it can be like a two,
the
like,
staff time, because a lot of community engagement.
District six,
all
district
staff
five.
do.
You were going through
right.
that.
And you
Okay.
have
Family
like
stuff.
You got staff
more
that's
families
working
engaged,
from 8
doing
some
great,
of
like
them 6 o'clock in the
utilizing
morning coming in,
virtual
and then you were asking them to leave,
to get
and they got
community feedback
until 8, 9 o'clock
besides
at
doing an
night.
assignment.
Doing community, because most communities, they start at 6:30, we end at 8. People are talking, moving around, it's 8:30, and now they're not even getting home at 9:30, 10 o'clock at night. So I don't even know how that look like, because I think it's not just about the schools, but it's about, if we're looking at it as a board lens, how are we taking care of our staff to do this work at the same time?
And invite you all back.
Oh, utilizing.
All right, capture your final thoughts, and then I'm going to ask you to share the highlights. We will type up everything, so you do not feel like you have to share everything that you categorized, but maybe one example from each category, or as many as you like. We're not exactly short on time, but one example from each category at least.
okay. Since our chair stepped out, I'll just jump in there. One from each category. So under the Rose category, everything about the Community Mapping Initiative has just been really wonderful. We think that's a tremendous example. You know, that's one that I would go out and share with other districts in terms of just a great model program. In terms of promising practices you'd like to see built upon, I know you said one, but I'm going to give you.
Oh, feel free.
The District 9 engagement was great, but to build off that, maybe like a more formal summit or just meeting. We've met the folks, we've identified them, but then sometimes to really continue the momentum, you want to get people in the same room with the actual school-based staff to where they can sign up, get questions answered, and take it to that next level. And then also sharing, like we learned about today, sharing some of the successful practices and lessons learned in the Title I schools related to engagement with the non-Title I schools. So if we know this is something that does work, if it's something that we can find funding for that we could apply in another school, let's definitely use what's getting results in other areas of need. And then for the thorn, the things that are sticking, I thought this one was a good one. How do we engage students and families that attend schools outside of their immediate community, where a lot of the engagement activities are really focused, on that base for families that either have transportation challenges, working hours problems, or just other barriers to engagement. How do you really bring them into that process? Oh, she'd only asked for one. I just gave two for one.
Or feel free to highlight any others you want. I said at least one.
Well, our joint handwriting might not be.
So we also, how do we improve like evaluation and evaluation and feedback solicitation, right? Beyond just sending out an email with a survey or a text with a survey link, to make it more participatory and a more inclusive process. Some folks just aren't very tech savvy. Some people don't have access to everything. Sometimes the language isn't always clear. You can turn people off if something looks very long or technical. So are there other ways to get a broader spectrum of feedback on important questions where you're looking for feedback? Yeah.
All right. Who would like to go next?
Well, we had basically for Rose, we enjoyed the Community Mapping Initiative. It allows community to partner with the school to meet the needs. Then there's the Family and Community Engagement Summit, of course, too. That was fantastic. in our budding process, we like the District 4 community engagement work. I'm a little biased with that. And basically, it was really, the other thing is how to support families to implement the information they've learned from school to home, which is a thing that to do. And then also, when it concerns community engagement piece, the summit, how do we continue this and allow all families and teachers to engage in this work all together when it concerns the summit piece? And our thorn basically was sometimes that sticky stuff is those volunteer processes, and that's because some families still don't have access because of whether it's statuses or whatever the situation might be with receiving some levels of an ID for whatever purposes. Then there are highlights from the engagement the highlights from the engagement from the town halls. We definitely want to build stronger relationships within our municipalities in order to engage in this community engagement work. With the town halls and the schools. Is that right? Okay. And then the other part still moving into is how do we leverage the time conflicts with staff engaging with community engagement and balancing the whole work-life process. So to us, community engagement, if we as a board, we're just not like looking at it as just it's only families. How are we also taking care of our staff with doing this work of community engagement, and are they able to find a place of well-being within that process?
So it's interesting, we had the mapping initiative under the BUD because it felt like to me you're still sharing it, with your principals. So I guess it's fully developed as a tool and it's up and running and functioning, but that's why we put it in the BUD category, but we're both thrilled about it. And in the Rose columns, we, did the Family and Community Engagement Summit. I attended the one that was at Athens. I know you had a more recent one that I wasn't at. Maybe I'm confusing two different things.
Two different things.
Okay, all right. And then the Divine Nine involvement is great. So that's under the Rose category. And the Nightdale Collaborative, thank you for that quick overview. The Family and Community Engagement Summit is also under a BUD category because we would like to see that model, but bring parents in with more like our work. So contributing their input on the budget, contributing input on academics, student conduct, policy, that kind of thing. And then also a BUD is WCPSS 101 for families, helping them navigate the website, who to contact about what, where the policy, that type of stuff. But I made a note that might improve once the website, I know there's a website redesign happening, so. And the Thorns, do you want to do this one?
Sure, but I will add to the BUD thing, the Education 101, even if the website improves, maybe like a short video, something that someone could just hit play and listen to, or as a way to distribute that. For the Thorns, getting the board out in the community more, having a meeting elsewhere, especially a community engagement meeting. Want students sharing with the board more. This is for, do you want to do this one?
Yeah. So you know that I was really wanting to start a D5 student BAC, and I just couldn't pull it off this year. Running for election, it just didn't happen. But I want us to hear from students more in some capacity, whether that's BAC model or a town hall or a specially called board meeting where it's aimed for students to come share, however that looks.
Would you want it to be part of the community engagement process?
Yes. Yes, because I know that the superintendent has his student leadership team.
Yeah, leadership council.
But we don't hear that, and I don't get emails from students hardly ever, but I really want to hear from our students.
Yeah, I do too.
So,
Yeah.
But I will say, so the first 4 years I did run student BAC. It's definitely hard to keep going because they do graduate and go to different schools. But it was beneficial to me.
Yeah.
The last thing, utilizing virtual meetings, not when we have to be together by law, but for instance, when we had the Leadership Academy stuff, it was heavily attended, 70 to 100 families at a time. And I don't know if we really use virtual meetings, because it's hard to get places and it's hard to leave for lunch, and
That's a good idea.
you can do community engagement virtually and it'd be really successful. And it helps remove the roadblock of transportation or time.
So can I ask a clarifying question?
Sure.
You make that recommendation as a thorn, with the knowing and understanding that we want to try to make sure that we take community engagement into the community, in the school or in the municipality, for that matter.
Yeah.
Are you proposing that give consideration to creating a virtual meeting in those same municipalities to provide an opportunity from this segmented standpoint? Is
Either or. I mean,
Okay.
yeah, sure, why not? I mean, it's just, community engagement to me doesn't mean you necessarily have to be right where they are every single time, because you want to give the community options to be able to attend, and not everyone can attend, but you can also use the virtual to help promote that you're coming to a community. Or I just think it's a tool that we can use more effectively overall.
absolutely. You just gave me some thoughts, so absolutely.
Just to follow up on that, this is something that we talked about in relation to, like, what could this committee do? And I know staff has worked on, kind of brought us a couple proposals for going out in the community. But as we talked about it, there was an idea that maybe this meeting today could have been held out in a municipality.
I try really hard.
But
Yeah.
there was just a lot of logistics coming right off of everyone being busy yesterday.
Yes.
But then also, what happens with student achievement? Is that held off-site as well? And then do we get Dr. Wilson Norman's team out there, or do we just have two different meetings? Or do we try to set the committee at a different time so it's after work when more people can participate?
Yeah.
And so,
We've been toying with all those things, and thank you
Yeah.
for putting them on the table.
I think there's a real opening with student achievement to do it at a school that maybe highlights what's going on at that particular school with regard to student achievement. And to, we don't always control the narrative of public education, but maybe it gives us an opportunity to say, hey, y'all don't know about this particular school, we're having this meeting, we include that within the scope of student achievement so people can learn about our schools.
So what I'd like to see is, in a committee setting like this, we discuss some of the ideas, some of the pros and cons, whether, because we've had
You
proposals
stole my
about,
December agenda.
I know.
I told Clinton it's all planning.
but it was about, do we do a full board meeting out in a community? So people that would come for public comment can come in their own neighborhood. If we can plan it around a topic that's relevant to wherever we're going, that would make sense. But then other ideas, there's the the community engagement committee. You mentioned, like, the student achievement would be a good one. Facilities just naturally lends itself to being able to do
100%.
one out remotely, and that's one that we've done in my tenure since we've been here. So having that good discussion, perhaps in December in a planning
Yeah.
meeting,
Yes.
would be a great way to kind of flesh these out and get everyone's kind of vision for what they would see.
Yeah. And virtual was not on my list, but thank you for bringing it up. I certainly know during COVID, all of us used virtual, including for our BACs. And you are right, I have people attend that have never attended. And more parents attend just because they could easily get there, because it was virtual.
And we're
So that's
not
a great
allowed,
point.
and we're not allowed to do that for BACs anymore, are we?
That's actually a
That's
question
a good
that
question.
We're not
referred over
hybrid.
to Tharrington Smith for clarification, because post-pandemic, there were rules put on when you can have a public
A public
meeting,
meeting.
right? If you were just, having a planning meeting, that would be fine.
Right.
But if it's a public meeting, there's certain conditions about when it can be virtual, when it can't, but we never really got a definitive answer back.
We didn't, not for committees.
Yeah.
Because that would increase BAC attendance.
And I've had BAC members that have requested that, right?
I
Can we
did too,
just go to it?
post-COVID. So
No childcare needed?
we actually forgot, so we'll circle back to their district to give us an actual, we did ask, but I don't
That's
remember
right.
that we got the answer for
We
other
did not.
meetings.
Yeah. Thank you. This gives
Thank
us
you.
great information for planning in December. So yes, we will take your feedback so we can compile everything.
So is there anything specifically that you need us to do with regards to next step and how we're going to proceed moving forward? We're going to capture all the information, we're going to bring that back, but we do know and understand that we want to begin the planning process so that we can make sure that we have something that's robust as we continue to do this.
And all board members absolutely weigh in on how do we, because again, Chris and I had all the 1,000 things in our head, like that's a lot of staff, we'll bring it into community, if we do committees, and do we merge the committees, do we attach it to a board meeting, so having the board process all that. One would be helpful too, also, we can share it at our BACs, and also have them give us their feedback of what they'd like to see us discuss for next steps for community engagement.
One question, when we talk about students and students being able to participate, are there any particular topics that you would want to hear their voice on, that you would want them at this table?
I think that's their choice. If we talk about them having a voice, I just think that one meeting for them would actually be a brainstorm to ask them, what do you want? What are your concerns? What's going on in your schools that you feel that you would like to change or see done better, or that you think we do really well? I asked that question this Friday with Dr. Sturdivant with me, and those students had real answers and understood that we have challenges that do have to be addressed, that they do understand that they do have to follow certain rules, but they still had a take on it that where I think as adults we could hear what they have to say and then make a better sound decision around it so that they can be a part of the process, because at the end of the day we want students to be compliant and we want students to be active participants in their learning. And so they were sharing everywhere I go now, because we have one particular topic that we probably get a lot of emails about and that people are coming to speak at in community engagement. And so everywhere I go and there are students, I always ask them a particular question about that hot topic so that I can start gathering some anecdotal data or feedback.
And I utilized mine for policy. So every policy that was brought to us, I wanted their feedback on.
Yep.
So, I mean, during that time, I was spending a lot of my energy on dress code. So before we even wrote the dress code,
Yep,
right,
still talking about it, too.
we actually, well, there's two things, right? It's how do you want us to write it and feedback. The second piece is how is it implemented and the impact. And it's both of those that are, for me, great feedback. Because again, we make assumptions that people know that the way that they are asked to be compliant in schools, there is not a direct one-to-one correlation for every student that there is a policy to the requirement. And so for me, it's also about informing them so that they are actually giving us informed feedback.
I think you could do it with almost, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I just wanted to say, since it was it's really been something that's weighed heavy on me since I got on the board. My answer is exactly like Ms. Rice. You know, I want to know what is at the top of their minds, you know, and that could be different, you know, district to district, and
It will definitely be different from school to school.
Yeah.
Right, I was about to say,
Right.
we're school to school.
District.
Yeah.
So when the question is asked, I think that just from a personal perspective of dealing with so many different schools and throughout the district, we have to have a topic of discussion so it's not as random, because students, they will give you your thoughts.
Yeah.
But we want to make sure that the thoughts are aligned to what it is that we're trying to solve at that particular time.
And that we're going to use their voice. I am not an advocate for asking, that's why I use very clear guidance. I'm not an advocate for asking students for something that I can't deliver on.
Right.
Because otherwise, I'm
Right,
no
right.
better than adults. I'm wasting their time.
And the question that I asked, because I've had to recently go to a few schools that wanted me to address the students. This is what gets their attention. I learned after the first time. Having an introduction that the teacher does, they just think at first you're just this person in the district that's coming to talk to them. And then what I learned is say, okay, so I'm the board member who gets to make all the decisions around Our board makes all the decisions around how you get to maneuver in your school. All of a sudden, students are like, what? You, then the first thing they say, can you fix the dress code? Can you talk? Can you help us with these cell phones? So that's when I say, I know it sounds broad, but you have
Oh,
to.
we understand. He's just saying we gotta have a protocol.
Yeah, I'm with you. Okay, then I'm with you with the protocol. But I think that when we give them the spark to say, if there's anything, you know what to do. You guys are great at it. But yeah, I think they're hungry for it. They really want to be heard.
And I just want them to know that we care what they think and what is concerning them, you know. And I hear you. It wouldn't be a productive conversation if it was just a complete open free-for-all. So I don't feel like I'm articulating it very well, but maybe cell phones is a great example. So we're going to work on a policy around cell phones. Let's be sure that, I know that we can do a student survey and get it, electronically or what have you, but maybe that is the meeting, is around the cell phone, developing the cell phone policy.
Let us definitely put some things together, and we will definitely bring it back for consideration, even to include focus groups for board members. So
Great idea.
Oh, that'd be good.
I like that.
You're on top of it.
I would add 2 topics specifically. One is bullying in schools and how kids feel it's responded to.
Yep.
And the other one is, and I think this can't be from the student leadership team specifically, it's got to be from a variety of students, is academic experience. How is it going in the classroom? And it can be, if a teacher teaches for 90 straight minutes, how is that impacting you? Or are you just, it can be real in-depth, but it cannot just be from everyone who has a 4.0 and is getting a scholarship to a prestigious university like NC State.
Thank you for being clear. Again, no shade to all the teams that you all have, but that is true for your teachers and your students. It is the cream of the crop that gets to speak to central services, defined by central services, I should say, not, right? And there are students and educators who would never get the opportunity to really be heard by us. So I 100% agree.
I guess.
I like it.
Let us know if you need parameters on choosing students.
I got it.
And I guess that's the concern I have.
Yeah.
Is that feedback is representative, right? Because, with 160,000 students, we can't bring them all in. So how you choose that sample, you don't want to, unintentionally have it biased or slanted or not representative. You want to make sure that you can get enough, as many students participating, so it's just not like one person from each school district, right? Or 20 kids that are supposed to be the voice of K-12, but rather a representative sample. Yeah.
Mr. Georgia?
Thank you. And if I may add on to the 2 topics that was just laid on the table, I would also love to see, instead of having it here at the central office, let's have it in community. Let's have it at the schools or the feeder schools. Therefore, we can get not just students, but parents that share their perspective as well. 100%. And when you mentioned the student experience, whether it's about what students need to feel safe in the classrooms, I would love to invite legislators to that conversation. Because it's not just us alone that can fix this issue. I think it involves our counterparts on the county commissioners, our state legislators who choose to come. I'm looking at one that I know will be there, who will help me pull this together.
Yes, happily.
Just a way to show that this is a true partnership, and even some of the the municipalities that we've been engaging with, because there are resources that we may not know of that they can offer in their community. So I just think that we have to think a little deeper, which we are, but really going in different routes.
Yeah.
We got a head start. Good job.
like
I'm glad y'all are taking notes.
Yeah. All right, I kick it back over to you, and thank you for your time.
Well, thank you all, and again, thank those of you who are here and our colleagues. I'm sure all of us have far more opinions, but again, this committee was designed for our opportunity to be in community, to receive feedback, but also so that we are receiving that feedback to actually do something with it. And I certainly hear agreement from all of you that that is all of our sentiment, is that we're hoping to hear from representatives across our district, whether it be families, communities, or students. And I'm not going to leave out our educators as well, because this is also their opportunity to share with us on what they might need to actually, again, back to Burton Elementary, like what might they need? And by educators, I also mean our administrators. What might they need from the board to be able to implement some of these things that aren't, if they're not in a Title I school?
I have an idea and look forward to sharing with you.
All right, perfect. I look forward to hearing it. Thank you all, and we'll officially adjourn ourselves. And you got a good chunk of time, 15 minutes before student achievement, for those of you who will be here for student achievement.